Hello, everyone. I'm Dane Campbell. Welcome back to Change with Dane. I hope that you're doing good with your intent and efforts to change, whether that be to change thoughts or whether that be to change behaviors. Remember that my purpose in doing these discussions is hopefully to help you think about things that you could make different in your life that will help in bringing greater peace and greater success and greater overall satisfaction in your life. And I do this with just a hope that I can share experience that I have learned and gained over the years that could potentially help maybe some of you in your journey to live a more fulfilling existence and experience in your life. So remember last week we talked a little bit about some of the names that we might call ourselves or develop a habit of calling ourselves based upon interactions we've had throughout our lives. And I gave you one specific skill that you might be able to use, which was testing the truthfulness or the validity of that name by giving it a definition. And today I want to talk a little bit more about something that's very important to me in terms of how sometimes those names or things we tell ourselves about ourselves can maybe come to us through association with our culture, our religion, our families, and how they might not serve us in the best possible light. I'm going to talk specifically about a couple of things that I developed in my life by being a member of a high demand religion and why these became so problematic for me and why it became important for me to find a different way of describing myself and talking to myself about my life and who I am. This could be controversial for many people because I realize how deeply important and how much people are invested and believe some of those things that they have been taught by their religious training. And I mean no offense to anyone if I talk about these things. It's just my experience and what I went through, and perhaps some of the things that were true for me may be something that you're experiencing as well. And you may want to take the opportunity to ask yourself if some of those thoughts or ideas are serving you well and are bringing you the results that you want out of life and out of your existence. So I've written about this first thought or kind of this first idea extensively. I have a book that's being published currently, which I will put out to the world here soon. But the idea that there was a mythical figure who had great power to sink my life if I wasn't good enough, and that's the idea of Lucifer or Satan. This is a very strong and powerful character in the church that I grew up in. I know it's also a very strong and powerful character in many other religions. and many other faiths. And the ideas and stories that the church gave me in regards to Satan were somewhat minimal. The actual doctrines of who he was, what he was, although they were there, a lot of times they weren't specific. And a lot of times what we do as humans is our mind tries to fill in the blank of what is only half stated or what is only partially there in terms of truth. And so I was a kid that grew up needing to believe very strongly in my religion and in the schemas and the ideas and the teachings that were given to me by the church leaders and by my parents. And I do not fault them for doing their best to pass down to me the things that they felt were very important. But this myth and this story of this individual who had the power to possess me and to own me if I was not good enough really screwed with my head and fucked with my life as a young person growing up. I lived in fear. I developed extremely bad habits around sleeping and around literally looking over my shoulder, waiting for this entity to swoop down and own me and possess me if I wasn't good enough. So that leads me into the name that I grew up calling myself, which, in my opinion, is extremely harmful. And that's the name of being a sinner. So, in the grand scheme of things, my church taught me that the natural man, which is any person that is born upon this earth, is to start out with an enemy to God. So we come from a basis of badness and baseness and the inability to connect with God unless we do it exactly the way that the church tells you you can have him close to you and be a part of him. And on the surface, that is all true because none of us are perfect. We are all going to make mistakes. We are all going to sin. This was not a healthy line of foundational belief for me, because at the heart of it, I'm a good person. And at the heart of it, everybody around me are good people. Now, granted, there are individuals in our world who hurt others, and they do it intentionally. There are individuals who, for whatever reason, whether it's the way they were raised or just their physiological makeup, they will grow up and they will do not so good things to others, and they will hurt others. But by and large, all of us come into the world with kind of the same makeup, and given all things being equal, most people aren't in this world to hurt others. They're not in this world and only out for themselves. And I can say that because I served in an Air Force where people tried to come and give of themselves and do the right thing and offer themselves up, if need be, for their fellow man or for the idea or for the better or greater good. And there are the vast majority of our populace lives with this schema in their heart and in their minds. So for me, the foundational idea that I'm bad, that I'm a sinner, was not and will never be helpful. And so I spent the better part of 3 or 4 years, and still to this day, deconstructing not only that idea and that teaching that was given to be my religion, but all of the other teachings to see if they made sense for me, or if they were going to make me happy, or if I was going to achieve greater peace in my existence by living under those ideas, names, expectations, and guidelines for my life. Not everybody needs to critically look at the ideas that they're given through their religions. Not everybody needs to go on this path that I went on. The only thing that I'm asking you to do today is to look at those thoughts and ideas, no matter where they come from, whether it be from the service organization you belong to, or your religion, or your family, or your job or occupation. Can you just take a minute and look at those ideas and those expectations and the reasons and the motivations as to why you act and to why you do things, and to why and who and what you are. And just ask yourself, do these things truly bring me peace? Do they bring me happiness? Or are they things that I maybe need to adjust, or I need to think about in a different way so that I can help myself in this existence that I have to feel better about who I am and to get me closer to having what I want from this life and from this existence. What did I replace the name of sinner with? I replaced it with sort of this mantra, which is, I'm an imperfect person. I don't do everything right, and I make a lot of mistakes, but I try to learn from them, and I try not to hurt people. And when I have opportunities, I try to find ways that I can help people. Do I always do that? Hell no. I am an imperfect person, and I'll be the first to admit it. And I have a whole bunch of faults. And I always will, because in my opinion, this life is not about being perfect. This life is about alleviating difficulty and suffering where I can, giving to people where I can, and truly enjoying what is around me and what is on this earth that I enjoy and that I like. The pressure to live by a very highly demanding set of expectations and rules was not serving me well. I was continually full of shame. I was continually full of guilt. And I could never make that go away because I was never going to be perfect. So when I found a way to set that aside, the expectations, and set those aside, and to create for myself my own expectations on who I was going to be in life and what was going to have the greatest meaning for me, Dane Campbell, at the end of this life. Once I decided that it was okay for me to do that and that I had the ability and the power to do that, the guilt and the shame washed away. I no longer had to own the moniker of sinner, and peace was much easier for me to find throughout my week. Doesn't mean I'm perfect at it. Doesn't mean I always find myself feeling peaceful. Far from it. Life still gives me a lot of challenges that are very difficult to deal with and struggle with. But for me, I've been able to find a greater sense of meaning, a greater sense of purpose, and a greater peace and happiness by challenging the names, the thoughts, the beliefs, and even some of the behaviors that were encouraged and reinforced and that I felt needful to live for a very long time in my life. I hope this has been helpful. Look, we're all on this journey together, and in my opinion, nobody knows exactly how to do it right. But hopefully, if you'll allow yourself to challenge some of the ideas and thoughts and beliefs that you're holding on to, you may find that some of those things are not serving you well, and you could find greater peace and happiness in this life that you are living. I've gone a little longer than I usually do. I appreciate you listening, and I really would appreciate if you would subscribe, and if you would like. If you have any comments at all, you can leave them below, and I'm happy to answer those there or in a future video. If you would like to know more about my therapy practice, you can find that out on changewithdane.com. And I am out there a bit on Facebook and Instagram, and I do a little bit of blogging as well. Those are on my website. So all of these things hopefully will give you greater access to some of the ideas that universally, I think, can help people with the changes that they find themselves going through or that they choose to enact for themselves. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.